Welcome to Rotten to the Lore.
Yes.
I'm AlyxTheQueer. This is
AggroBaby.
AggroBaby. Cece and I are really excited to bring this channel to you. We're going to talk about a couple different things today to get us started. First thing that I want to talk about is why we created this channel. We have three real big reasons why we created this channel. As players in the community, we recognize that sometimes this space is not a space that is so friendly for people who have not played competitive TCGs before, which means you sit down against an opponent and you are expected to behave in ways that competitive TCG players already know how to do because they've played other big games like Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, and Pokemon. We're here to do a couple things. Three, in fact. The purpose of our channels are to, one, create accessibility into the TCG world by demystifying the TCG experience to allow newcomers and those who are curious of TCGs to become better. Our second reason is because we want to create an inclusive environment. And while that's probably true for most people, and I sure hope, our inclusivity is looking in a couple different areas, right? People's brains work differently. People are different as humans. Cece and I are not the same. However, we can all learn and grow from each other. And this is a space that everyone should be welcome, no matter what your play style is, no matter how long you've been playing TCG, as long as you're a good person and you try to be nice to others. The third reason that we think it's so important that we bring Rotten to the Lore to y'all, beyond, we're fun to be around, and we make good jokes when we play, is probably the most important. And that is so that we can build relationships with y'all. Y'all can build relationships with each other, and we can better foster a growing community. I'm not alone when I say that the community of Lorcana has brought so many people together in ways that we never thought was even possible. And that's one of the most beautiful things about Disney Lorcana, in fact, is our community. So what we want to do is build it and make sure that everybody has an accessible opportunity to engage in whatever way that they choose. I'm going to throw it over to Cece to introduce who she is.
Hey, everyone. I couldn't agree more with everything that Alex just said. It's so important for us to create space for everyone to feel welcome. This is my first TCG, and like they said, TCGs aren't always the most welcoming spaces, especially in a world where we've got so many competitive players out there who know exactly what they're doing and exactly how to do it. This is my first real TCG. I may have dabbled a little bit here and there in a commander deck on Magic or something like that. But never did I feel the same kinds of things that I feel in Lorcana community. And I think that's what makes it special. In Lorcana community, we're all a bunch of adult Disney fans or young Disney fans, right? Like, that's the great thing, is that we can have a huge age range, a huge experience range, diversity in so many different ways that has made this a community that I want to be a part of, and a community that has given me a home, even though I'm not the best player in the world, and I'm not going to always have the brain that works the way that can, maneuver into those super competitive spaces. I'm not going to win the tournaments all the time. Occasionally I've been lucky. But again, I'm having fun. Winning isn't the only reason I'm doing this. In fact, if it were, even if I was winning a lot, I don't know that I would be as invested, because what I really love about this community is how we all show up for one another throughout the DLCs, throughout the different events people have been making. Quest in the Park was a thing that happened that we'll talk about in a future episode. All these community-based things that happen that build friendships. And, it was a friend in the Lorcana community that brought me this beautiful crown and this beautiful necklace because she saw my Ursula vibes. She saw my villainous vibes. I don't have to be a princess. I can be a villainess. And that's perfectly fine. I love this community. I love this space. And the reason that I wanted to come and join Alyx to do this is quite literally to share this space with everyone else. I really believe there's a spot for everyone in Lorcana, and we want to help you find yours. I know Alyx said some stuff before, but they didn't say much about themselves, so I'm going to pass it off to them now to introduce themselves to you.
I may not be a villain like Cece, which means that I'm maybe not as cool, potentially. However, I think of myself as more of like an alien. I like Stitch a little bit. That being said, I by no means consider myself to be a Disney adult in the sense of having going to the parks and doing things like Disney bounding. In fact, I didn't learn what Disney bounding was until I started Lorcana because I was hanging out with some of my other content creating friends and they were talking about Disney bounding outfits and us matching. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And they were kind enough to tell me what it meant and also help me make an outfit because I'd never done that before. That being said, the way that I got into Lorcana is kind of funny because this isn't my first TCG, but it is my first competitive TCG. I played Magic the Gathering for a little while, but it was mostly just a Friday night casual or pre-release event exclusive. I would play with friends all the time, but most of that was really just us having fun. And honestly, we used vehicles, if you're familiar with Magic at all, in a way that vehicles are apparently not meant to be played. So we just made up our own game. The way that I heard about Disney Lorcana was very happenstance. My partner and I had moved to Texas because I had gotten a job there. And we were unhappy because it was East Texas, and unfortunately, it's not the best place to be when you are a queer person. And by not the best place, I mean is a pretty bad place to be. And so we were trying to figure out something to do. If you've ever been to East Texas, you know that there's very limited things to do. And I just happened to be scrolling one day on TikTok, as one does when they're wasting time. And I came across this video that was like, tomorrow is the pre-release for Chapter 1, Disney Lorcana, the new Disney trading card game. And I was like, what? And so that made me tune in. And I watched 3 different videos back to back to back. I went to my partner and I said, hey, babe, we're going to play this game. She's never played TCGs at all. She didn't even grow up playing board games. And I was so infatuated with the game. We got in on day 1. And that was so cool. But it was such happenstance. And I think in life, things like that happen. And there's a reason for it. Even if that reason is just to keep you sane while you live in Texas, or more importantly, to build community. And so the way that I got into the game was really cool looking back on it. But the way that I've grown in the game is something that I'm really proud of. It is something that watching the game evolve also meant that during that time in that journey, I got to watch my friends who were also playing the game evolve as players and as people. And I think at any point when we're playing the game, whether you find yourself to be a princess, an alien, or a villain, you end up in this position where you have to make choices on who you want to be and who you are going to be in a community. And time in and time again, I would see people who would make right choices. Whereas in other communities, such as Magic the Gathering, or even just tabletop games, not everybody's making those same choices. And something that CC and I had been talking about is, it's not about being perfect. Sometimes when we play competitively, and I enjoy playing competitive, I have some success. We are on a competitive team. But that's not what it's all about. Because you should still enjoy playing the game even when you're not winning, even when it's not getting you the set champs card that you want or the mat that you need. But because everybody has different goals, sometimes that's not necessarily achievable. And so it's about what you put back into that community, not just what you can get out of it. And I think that's the thing that really made me gravitate more and more toward Disney Lorcana was the community, because it made me want to be a part of something that made other people's lives better, including mine. So I think all in all, wherever you are, whatever your goals are, we're going to prove to you that Disney Lorcana is for you, even if you just play at home one time or with a friend on the weekends, or if you go to every single DLC and qualify for Worlds. Because at the end of the day, this is a community.
Yeah, and so to get you started, let's take some time looking at what you need to get going. So we want to get you ready to start playing, and one of the first things that's going to help you get ready is this wonderful tool put out by Disney Lorcana. It's called the Disney Lorcana TCG Companion, and it'll look like, currently because of Reign of Jafar, it'll look like a bit of a burgundy, reddish, brownish with the lore symbol in the middle of it. You can just Google Lorcana in Google, or you can search it in your whatever app store or Play Store you use for your phone. So let's dig in a little bit. Depending on what device you're using, you're going to be getting your apps from different places, but wherever you go to get your app, just type in Disney Lorcana, or even probably Lorcana, and this will come up pretty easily. It's a quick install. It doesn't take a bunch of time. You're looking for this lore symbol on a background. As I mentioned, the backgrounds do change with each set. So right now we're looking at this reddish brown one for the the Reign of Jafar. So we're going to go ahead and open that up. It's going to take us to our main Lorcana landing page here. Yes, we want to start. And into the storybook we go for our great adventure. There's a lot of things you can do with this app, but today we're going to focus specifically on the catalog and the lore counter. But before I do that, I did want to point out these great little bits here that you can scroll through. There's stories here, there's artist spotlights, there's really cool stuff that you can learn about the game. Most of these are going to take you to another website. My favorite one, of course, is going to be the story itself, which just takes you to the main website. And if you click here on story, you can go chapter by chapter and follow along on this amazing quest we've been going on and what we're doing and how we got here. But for now, we are going to stick to the app. So let's come back over here and let's start by looking at the catalog. Now, the catalog is great for a lot of reasons. You want to keep track of your cards. You want to know what you've got. You want to know what you're missing. This is a great place to do it. You can look by set. So let's say you were interested in Ursula's Return, or you just got your hand on some Ursula's Return cards. You're opening them. You want to keep track of what you've got. You're like, oh, wow, I've got this great Minnie Mouse Musketeer Champion. Yep, I've got one of her. I'm going to add that in. I'm so happy. Oh, but you know what? I really wish I had a foil of her. So I'm actually going to click this foil button, which is really cool because it also gets to let you see what the foil of the card looks like. And I'm going to click this little heart, which is going to add that to my wish list. So if I come out here now, scroll up to the top, go back to the main catalog rather, and look up here on top, I've got my cards. I've got the cards that I own, and I've got the cards that I am wishing for, and I am wishing for these 3 cards. And this is going to be really helpful if you're doing some trades with someone. Keeping track of what you've got and what you want is awesome. There's also a way in here to build a deck, which is also a really great way to use the app, but we'll focus on that in another video another day. The other piece of what I wanted to show you today in the app is the lore counter. The lore counter is super helpful because it helps everyone keep track of lore and of how the game state is going. You will get the option to have a light theme or a dark theme. Of course, we're villainous here, so we definitely go with the dark theme. And it's pretty simple. You add your lore as you go, and once somebody reaches 20, they will win the game. Ta-da! Very simple. Something else that's really cool here is that we've also got a special lore counter for the Palace Heist and for the Deep Trouble. So these Illumineers quests have their own rules, and they can be a little bit difficult to keep track of. So using the Illumineers quest lore counters allows you to pick the amount of players and pick the difficulty, and based on that, the game is going to keep track of the different rules, how many cards Jafar pulls, etc. It's really great, and I think you'll very much enjoy that. So that's pretty much what we're doing with the app today. keep track of your lore as you're playing games. And with that, Alex is going to tell you a little bit about what else you need to get started.
In order to play Disney Lorcana, there are a couple things that you're going to need first, one of which is picking a playmat. Playmats by no means are necessary, but they do make your game a lot more personalized and fun. And who doesn't want to play with their favorite Disney characters? Some of the playmats that we currently have are like Pooh, Honey Wizard, and Tink, the Giant Fairy. These are beautiful takes on already existing characters. Now that you've picked out your playmat, all you have to do is roll it out and we can start having some fun. One thing that a lot of people get are protectors for their mats. These are meant to put your mats in order to keep them safe and secure, whether you're traveling to and from events or if you're just putting them at home on a shelf and you don't want them to get dirty. These holders come in many different sizes, styles, colors, and designs. Personally, I like this hexagonal one that you see right here in front of you because it has the mat fit a little bit more loosely. You just need a couple more things to begin. Let's start with some deck boxes. There are a couple different types of deck boxes. Here are two that we're going to go over. One is just a simple 60 card deck box. This is the Alice deck box that came in an OP kit back a couple of sets ago. However, while you could get this at League play, it is something that not everyone has. This other deck box is almost an upgraded deck box that has a compartment for your cards that slides out like a shelf, and then a secondary compartment that is hidden behind a second door where you can put any of your dice or tokens that help you play the game better. Dice are generally used in this game to mark damage on specific characters or locations, which we'll talk about at a later date. It's cool to have a deck box so that your cards don't get damaged. In order to play Core Constructed, which is one of the many formats of Disney Lorcana, but the one that is most commonly played, you need a deck of minimum 60 cards. Showing you here just an example of what a deck can look like. A lot of decks look different because different people play different ways. We'll talk about different types of ways to play in the future, but for now, know that it's important that you have 60 cards at least in your constructed deck. Once you have your 60 cards, you're almost ready to play. You need sleeves. Here is an example of both an inner sleeve and an outer sleeve. These further protect your cards and are necessary for competitive play. I mentioned before how you would need some dice, and you can't go wrong with too many dice. Some people track their lore with dice in this game. Other people use these other four techniques. First, we have the Lorcana Spinner. This is fun, and you oftentimes have a cool Disney character like Stitch. The notepad, which is tried and true and often the most reliable in a competitive format. A boogie board or an electronic-ish device that doesn't have a memory is allowed, but be careful not to accidentally press it in the middle of your game, or you're going to lose your lore track. Another way that many people keep track of lore for Lorcana is the Lorcana app. This is super cool because it gets updated every set. Not to mention, can you see your cards, but you are able to see and track your lore from 1 to 4 players. We will do a deep dive on this app in a later episode, but it is a really cool way to play and keep track of your lore. Now you have all the basic essentials to play your first game of Lorcana.
All right. Today we are going to be playing the brand new Disney Lorcana Reign of Jafar starter decks. We have two different ones here for you today to play. These starter decks are single player decks. They come with one single player deck with 60 cards, including 2 foil cards. For mine, it is the Stitch and the Mulan.
And for mine, it is Tiana and Bruno Madrigal.
It also comes with 11 damage counters, which I will be using dice, but you can use the damage counters it comes with, which are made out of cardboard. It also comes with 1 paper playmat, 1 paper tracker token, and game rules. So it's the perfect starting point for folks just getting into the game, which is great. And it also comes with 1 booster pack that comes with 12 different cards, which we'll talk about later, and we're going to save it for the end of this game. My starter deck is the Mulan and Stitch starter deck, which is Ruby Steel. It is the Brave and Brazen, where Mulan, charging ahead, and Stitch, Alien Troublemaker, are ready to meet any challenge as they storm Jafar's palace. Ooh. With Ruby and Steel heroes and glimmers like these, this deck has enough strength to make quick work of enemies as you race towards triumph. I'm really excited to play this deck, and we'll see how it goes.
Sweet. I'm going to be playing this deck. It is an Amber Amethyst deck. I play Amber Amethyst a lot, but in a different style. I play it for Hyper Aggro, which is something we'll talk about in coming weeks. This deck is called a Harmonious Team. These Amber and Amethyst glimmers hit all the right notes. Tiana, Natural Talent, Bruno Madrigal, Singing Seer, and many others sing magical melodies to help you on your quest. This choir of characters will soon have you singing the sweet song of victory. So this one's going to have all the same stuff except with this other deck. And it looks like this deck is going to want to be singing. So I'm excited to try that.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we open them up?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right.
We are going to be using dice. That's traditionally what's used in competitive play, but you are more than welcome to use this and a paper play mat if you want to. It just kind of helps you learn where to put your deck, your discard, and your inkwell, which we'll talk about here in a minute. I got a Rapunzel booster pack in mine. I'm going to set that to the side, and we can do that at the end, which will be like a nice little surprise. I
got Jafar.
Ooh, Jafar for the Jafar set.
Yes, that's exciting.
This is the deck. It comes wrapped in this paper. You'll unwrap it, and all of your cards are there for you to be able to play. You can also change out cards if you'd like, but you can absolutely just play with this. It's 60 cards and ready for you to play. We're going to set this quick start rule guide to the side, but it will be beneficial to you if you are just starting Lorcana. Now we're going to unwrap our decks. We're going to talk more about the ways in which you play your turns and what order as we do it. So it's going to be a learn as we play together. But first, let's protect our cards. You see here, I have sleeves. The sleeves that I'm playing with today are heavy play sleeves. They have curved edges, which are really cool, and they are for heavy use. These can be great sleeves for beginners as they learn how to shuffle their deck.
Okay, so now we're all sleeved up, but as you'll have noticed, you can't just play one of these right out of the box because they will have multiple instances of a card back to back with each other. So you've got to do a pretty good shuffle. Personally, I like to do the pile shuffle. I'm not super great at shuffling anyways, so the pile shuffle is very helpful for me. I try not to go the same 6 every time. I try to change it up so that I'm really giving it a lot of, a good little mix up there. And then once I'm done doing this pile shuffle, I will then do a regular shuffle. And something to note about the pile shuffle is that in tournament settings, they won't always allow pile shuffles because some people think that it is a way to stall time and stall out the clock in a tournament setting. So just ask if you are playing in a tournament setting if you're allowed to. Generally, they'll allow you to pile shuffle in between matches, but not in between games. And some places might say no entirely. It's always good to check the rules wherever you're playing and not assume that the rules will be the same as what you're used to.
And it is important to note as a caveat that pile shuffling is not considered a shuffle by Lorcana rules. So you must, if you pile shuffle, also do a traditional shuffle as CC is demonstrating.
Yeah. All right, so that seems to have a pretty good mix in it. Now that I've got this, I'm going to take a moment to talk you through the types of cards. And I'm not going to talk about rarity right now. I'm just going to talk about the specific types of cards. So this here is Mirabelle Madrigal. She is a character. Character cards are going to have a strength and a defense. So the strength is how much they hit for, and the defense is how much they can withstand before they die. Some characters will have this lore symbol on the side, And that is not necessary for a character, but some do. And that means that if this character quests, and we'll talk more about how that happens after, you will gain 1 lore for this character questing. The characters will sometimes have more words here that are relevant to the game, and they will usually have some flavor text at the bottom that's there for fun and part of the story. The characters will also have another name underneath them. So this is Mirabelle Madrigal, Curious Child. And that's because there's going to be many different versions of Mirabelle Madrigal in this game. And this specific one is going to be noted by that little name, Curious Child. So that's what the character card looks like. Let's see. Characters. Characters will have different abilities that will be written on their card, and there will be different words that denote the same ability that we'll talk about a little bit later as well. Okay, this is an action. So an action is another type of card, and actions come in 2 types. There's one that's just a plain action, and let me actually see if I can find one of those. Here's one. Perfect. So this here is just a plain action. It is going to have its cost up here, and it doesn't have any strength or defense or lore. It is going to do something that will be written on the card. So this card says your characters gain challenger +2. So that means they have 2 more offense when they challenge, when they attack. And when this character is banished in a challenge, return this card to your hand this turn. So that's what this action does. And you pay the cost. And that's the only way to play the action, unless you have a card that says play an action for free or for some other cost. And it happens and it's done. It goes into your discard. This kind of action is a song, and it's pretty much the same as the other action, except there's a second way that you can play it, and that's by having a character card sing it. So I'm going to bring back, actually, Mirabelle is too cheap too. She only costs 1, and this song costs 2. So the character that wants to sing the song has to cost at least as much as the song costs. So let's pull out.
Or have an ability called Singer, which gives you the ability to sing the song.
Right. And that's one of those ability words that we'll talk about a little later. So this character, Pot Dispel, costs 3 to play. And therefore, if this character is out and ready to be played, it can choose, instead of questing or attacking, to exert to sing this song. So I don't actually have to pay the cost of this song. Instead, I can use this character to sing it. So those are the 2 types of actions. Then we have cards that are called items, and I'm not sure.
I have an item right here.
Would you?
Yeah. Yeah. This item is called Training Staff. Its cost up in the left corner indicates that it would cost 2 ink, which we will talk about momentarily, in order to play it. It is an item, and as stated, what that means is that when you play it, it hits the field and it stays there, kind of like a character, except, as we've discussed, it's not a body. So it has a different ability. This particular item does a couple different things, but its ability is called Precision Strike. It has this symbol right here, which is an exert symbol. It almost kind of looks like a reply button, if you think about it. What that means is for your card to be turned sideways as part of the pay cost. An additional cost, it is listed next to it, and it is 1, and then the ink symbol, which means that in order to use this item, you have to turn it sideways and pay 1 ink. But what you get by doing that is you get to choose a character that gains Challenger +2, which means it gets +2 to the front number, so that number that it uses to challenge into another character for this turn. That's a really cool ability, and because of the ready step, it readies at the start of every turn. So you could use it every turn. But items don't go away unless they have a banish article on them or your opponent gets rid of them.
There's a fourth kind of card, and that's a location, but I don't have any locations in my deck. Do you have any locations in your deck, Alex?
I do not have any locations in my deck, but I can get one
Great.
to just show what it looks like. Now, this is an enchanted location, so regular locations will look a little bit different, but the idea is that they are landscape. They have a move cost, which is here to the left. That's how much it costs in ink, which is the currency in this game, to move characters there. Then you have the willpower, which is whenever a character is dealing damage to it, if it gets to the point of 7 damage, then this is banished. The ability, however, at Cusco's Palace is that whenever a character is challenged and banished while they are at the location, they get to banish the challenging character, which is a really cool ability in this particular game. Also, this is a good time to talk about lore symbols. This this location has one lore symbol, which means that at the start of every turn in that set step, you would get a lore. But much like this symbol, you've actually already seen it before when Cece was talking about characters. Cece, do you want to talk about lore symbols a little bit more?
Sure, but before we talk about the lore, we've talked a lot about ink, and we haven't really explained it. So I wanted to show a little bit about how you get the currency that you use to pay for all of these things.
Yeah.
So you'll notice on the cards, there's 2 different symbols at the top of each card. One of 2. It's either going to have this number with this fancy wreath-like symbol around it, or it's going to have this number with this hexagonal, very straight piece on it. This means that this card with the wreath-like piece is inkable. So I'm allowed to turn this card 1 card per turn unless I have another card that allows me to do something different. Everybody is allowed once per turn to take an inkable card, flip it upside down, and it becomes your currency. To spend it, you exert it, which is just to turn it sideways, as Alex mentioned. Now, there's going to be cards that will allow you to play extra ink. That's cool. Most of the time, you're never going to see your ink cards again. So when you're making the decision what cards to turn into ink, you'll turn them down there expecting not to see them again. Now, there's a couple exceptions to that. There are a few cards that have come out. There's a Mufasa, there's Ink Geyser. There's a couple of cards out there that have actions that make you take back some of the ink into your hand. But other than that, you should expect not to see that card again. Once you have your ink down, you can then play a card in your hand that has the cost of as many ink as you have or less, and you would exert it to play that cost. When you play a character, I would have to have 2 ink to play this 2-cost character. When you play a character, it comes out as drying. So you're using the ink to draw the glimmer. The glimmer or character then has to dry, so you can't use it that turn. Sort of like in some other TCGs, there's a wait period before you can use it, and that'll be the turn. So the next turn, you'll be able to use that person. Once you have that person, then you're starting to try to get some lore, maybe, depending on how you're going to use it. So in terms of lore, the point of the game, the way to win the game is to get 20 lore before your opponent gets 20 lore. The only other way to win, and please forgive me if I'm wrong, and there's another way that I haven't thought of, is if your opponent goes to draw a card and there are no cards left in their deck to draw. Is that true?
Yeah.
And
that's called milling. And if you get milled, because you are unable to draw, you are unable to continue the game. And if at any point you are the first player to do that, because there is an order to these operations, then you, or if it is your opponent, loses the game.
So you want to get to 20 lore, and you can get lore in a couple of ways. One is having a character that is dry, exert for its lore. So that means it can't do anything else this turn. It means that it's vulnerable to attack. When it's standing up, it's not vulnerable to attack unless it's attack with an action. It's not vulnerable to a challenge, or unless there's a card that says it can challenge standing characters or ready characters. But we'll get into those more detailed things a little bit later. Generally, if it is ready and standing up, it cannot be challenged. When you quest it, you then get that lore. It goes towards your lore total. If you have a location at the beginning of your turn, you can get a lore. Then there are actions and songs that will allow you to gain lore. There are some abilities on characters that will allow you to gain lore. There's many different ways that you can gain lore, but the main goal is to get to that 20 lore point. So I think we've just said a lot of stuff and it probably sounds a little overwhelming. And the best way for us to really show you what we mean is by playing a game and letting you see it all in action. So
the three things to remember from all of this is you can ink once per turn, and no matter what the cost of that card was, if it was inkable, it counts as 1 ink. Second, that characters can either challenge, quest, or sing on a given turn. That is what they can do. They can't do all three. Once they've done the thing, unless they are ready, they are unable to do the next thing. And if you're first to 20 lore, you win the game.
Fantastic. So to start the game, we generally use some form of chance to decide who's going to go first. Often that will be a high roll of 2 6-sided die, but you can choose whatever. Some people use odds or even. Some people do rock, paper, scissors. It's really up to you as long as your opponent agrees to the way that you want to do it.
Cece, how would you like to determine who goes first?
Want to do a high roll?
That sounds great to me.
Okay.
I got a 4.
I rolled a 9. So I now get the choice of whether I want to go first or second. There are advantages to both. Personally, it's my belief that going first has more advantage than going second. There are people who disagree, but I'm going to choose to go first. The reason that some people might think that going first is a disadvantage is because on the very first turn of the game, the person who goes first does not get to draw an extra card. They only pick their original 7 cards, and then every consecutive turn after that, the player whose turn it is will draw a card to start their turn.
Once you've decided who's going first by random decision, then you offer, after you shuffle, for your opponent to get to cut your deck. Because CC and I are in a virtual space, we're going to cut it ourselves, but you will always offer for your opponent to cut and or shuffle your deck, and you will do the same to theirs.
Once the cut's been made, you go ahead and draw 7 cards. Your starting hand will always be 7 cards. Now, in this game, you have one opportunity to do what's called an alter. And an alter means that you can put back as many of those 7 cards as you want. You don't have to put them all back. If you put some back, you can choose as many as you want. You'll put those to the side. You'll retrieve that amount of cards from the top of the deck. Then you'll take the ones that you put back and the alter, and you'll shuffle your deck again.
Generally, when you're announcing how many cards you're going to alter, the player that goes first is the one who announces that they are putting back however many cards, and then the second player does the same.
All right, I am actually going to keep my hand, so I'm not going to do an alter at all. I'm going to keep my 7 cards, which means I don't shuffle and I don't offer to cut again. What are you going to do, Alex?
Well, that's a scary thing. I will not be keeping my hand. I will be going back 3. So I will put the cards that I am keeping, which will be my hand here, put my 3 here, draw 3, and then set those 3 down, grabbing these and putting them on the bottom, then shuffling up again. You want to shuffle really good here because the goal is to re-randomize your deck. It is not to put those cards just as far away from you as possible or as close. Then once you've shuffled, then you will offer to your opponent to cut again. They generally do. We'll say CC did. And now we're ready to play.
Okay. So then I will start us out. And because I'm going first, I will not start by drawing. I'm going to look at my cards to find a card that I am willing to turn into ink. I'm willing to turn this card, So Much to Give, it's a song, into ink. So whenever you ink a card, you show your opponent the card, and then you turn it face down. It has become ink. I'm now going to spend that ink to play Dolores Madrigal. She costs 1. She is a 1/2 character that says whenever one of your characters sings a song, chosen opponent reveals their hand. There's nothing else for me to do. I can't ink anymore. I've already spent my ink, so I will say pass.
I will draw to start my turn. Looking at my hand, I am thinking about what cards are inkable that I am okay inking, and subsequently, what cards I want to look for on what we call curve, which means in the order of the turns that come. So ideally playing something on 1 that costs 1, playing something on 2, playing something on 3, playing something on 4, and so on and so forth. Looking at my hand, it's pretty not great. So I'm going to ink a friend owl. I personally leave my ink face up until the end of my turn. I'm not going to be playing anything on 1 because I don't have anything. So I will turn it over and then say pass.
So at the beginning of my next turn, we do this thing called ready, set, draw. So ready, if I have any characters or items that have been exerted, I would ready them. I would ready my ink. Set, if I have any actions or things in what we call the bag, which is essentially the place where anything that needs to be resolved sits, that's when I would do it. So if I had a location in play, this is when I would gain the lore from that location if it had lore. And then draw. So I draw my card and I get ready to play. I am going to ink this Bambi. I am going to use both of these ink to play Huey. Huey is a 2/3 character. Whenever this character quests, you may pay 1 less ink for the next character you play this turn. And then since Alex doesn't have anything on the board to hit me with, it's sort of safe, maybe, for me to quest with Dolores to get 1 lore. So that puts me at 1 lore, and I'm going to use this lore counter to mark that. And I'm going to say pass turn.
And it's always good that you keep track of your opponent's lore. Throughout the game, you want to know where they are as much as you want to know how close you are to winning the game. I will draw for turn. Looking at my draw, I'm not super thrilled with it. So I will ink an Honest John for turn and play a Friend Owl. Friend Owl doesn't have any special abilities, but is a 2/2, which means it hits for 2 and it defends for 2, and it can quest for 2. And then I pass my turn.
Okay, so I go ready, set, draw. I'm going to ink this Bruno Madrigal. I'm going to quest with Huey, which is going to activate his ability that says whenever this character quests, you may pay 1 less for the next character you play this turn. So I'm questing for 1, which takes me to 2 lore. Then I'm going to pay 1 less to play Mariano Guzman, that costs 3. So I'm going to pay 2 to do that. And then I'm going to pay 1 to play Mirabel Madrigal. So for Mariano, it says he's a 3/4 character with 1 lore. And it says when you have a character named Dolores Madrigal, which I do, in play, this character gets +1 lore. So he only has 1 on him, but while Dolores is in play, he's worth 2 if he quests. And then for Mirabel Madrigal, it says when you have this when you play this character, you may reveal a song in your hand to gain a lore. So I'm going to reveal So Much to Give, and I'm going to gain a lore up to 3. Now I've spent all of my ink, and I am going to not quest Dolores because I want to hold her alive so Mariano can get the extra lore, and Alex has something on the table that hits for 2 and would easily kill Dolores. So I'm just going to wait there, and I'm going to pass turn.
I don't have a character ready, but I will go ahead and draw. Unfortunately, it seems like the cards are not in my favor. I will be inking Khan and then playing a Prince John out to the field. Prince John is a 5/5 character that can quest for 1. However, his ability is Help, Help. Whenever an opponent plays a character, I have to deal 1 damage to that character, to Prince John. Looking at the board state that CC has established, this is pretty scary. I could turn it sideways, but I'm likely going to be losing my friend Owl and it not trading in a favorable way. So I go ahead and pass.
Okay. So I'm going to ready, set, draw. I moved my cards here just so that the glare wasn't hitting my cards so much, but my deck is right here. I am going to, so now I have 3 ink. I am going to pay those 3 ink to play Pepa Madrigal. She is a 2/4 character with 1 lore, and it says, whenever one of your characters sings a song, gain 1 lore. So I'm going to have Huey here sing, because he costs 2, So Much to Give, which costs 2, which says draw a card, chosen character gains bodyguard until the start of your next turn. So that's going to go into my discard pile. I'm going to draw a card, and then I have to decide who I want to be bodyguard for my next turn. So we're not going to play out the whole game today just because we wanted to show you a little bit about how the gameplay goes. In future videos, we will play full matches, but we wanted to really give you an idea just to navigate around your first game and how the cards work. Now, let's get to some pack ripping. So each pack, booster pack of cards is going to have 12 cards in it, and those 12 cards are going to be always in the same kind of ratios. And it says right here on the back, each 12 card booster contains 1 foil of any rarity, 2 rares or higher rarity, 3 uncommon, and 6 common. And those are going to come out. Well, Alex already has theirs open, so why don't you show us how they come out?
All right. So your back card will be an art card. And then
those generally are puzzle pieces that you put together. They're not playable cards. They're just for art to show us some fun stuff about what's going on in this set.
Yeah. You'll have comments in the front.
And you'll get 6 commons.
Yeah.
And then you'll have what are called uncommons, which are noted by that symbol, which is different than the common symbol. You'll get 3 of those. Then you start your rares, where you can either get a rare, super rare, or legendary. We can talk about enchanted and stuff later. However, this is the general rarity markers for now. This is a rare. It looks like I got a second rare and a foil common. And actually, this is one of the new foil commons that has a borderless edge.
Sweet. So that means that there are other ones that match the art and it continues. All right, that's cool. Let's see what I got. So again, we have our art card in the back. So these pieces would go together to make a larger piece of art. I've got Calhoun is one of my commons, Tramp, Bruno Madrigal, the Mouse Queen, Mr. Snoops, and Prince Ahmed. Then on to our uncommons. I've got Roly, Forest Duel, Trials and Tribulations. Ooh, and now I got a rare Bolt. Love me some Bolt. Nani is another rare. And then for my foil, I got Dodo. So cool. And that is what you'll find inside a pack of Lorcana boosters.
Now you've seen a little bit of questing. Now let's talk about some of our favorite Lorcana cards.
Hello, Illumineers. I really hope you're enjoying the show so far. We're having a real fun time putting it together for you. This segment's going to talk a little bit about our favorite card. And I got to say, this was a hard one for me. It was easy for me to pick my favorite ink color. Almost every deck I've made in my time since Floodborn playing the game have been Amber something decks. I really like the mechanics of Amber. I really like the types of cards that we get, and it fits well into my play style. So picking my favorite ink color was easy, but picking my favorite card was hard. There's a few staples that I put in most of my decks. So I had to go back and look at my decks and think, okay, well, which card has been in every deck since it came out? And the answer jumped out at me pretty quickly. This sweetheart right here, Daisy Duck, Donald's Date, has to be my favorite card. I play her all the time. She's great. There's a couple combos I really enjoy her with. I don't know what I would do. I'm so glad that she's not leaving us in rotation, which is something we'll talk about a little more later today. I love Daisy. She helps you to take away. So I'll read the card. It says, whenever this character quests, each opponent reveals the top card of their deck. Each opponent. So this is also great for multiplayer as well. If it's a character card, they may put it into their hand. Otherwise, they put it on the bottom of their deck. So, I'm AggroBaby. I like to play aggro decks, and a lot of times that means there's a lot of control coming my way by way of actions, songs. So, this little lady right here really helps me out when it comes to putting those actions and those songs at the bottom of the deck. So for me, it's going to be Daisy Duck.
For me, there are so many great cards in Disney Lorcana. And if I had to pick just one that was my favorite card to put in a deck or my favorite art from any particular set, it would just be hard. So when I was answering this question of what is my favorite card in the game so far, it was pretty clear to me which card that was. And that was Stitch Rockstar, particularly this Set Chance Stitch. The reason why is because for me, getting into this game, this was the first time that I won something that I really tried to go after. And that to me was huge. This card has a Shift 4 ability, and also whenever you play a character with cost 2 or less, you can exert them to draw a card. Check these out. See, it's so hard to choose which Stitch is my favorite Stitch because they all look so good. but I guess it has to be Rockstar Stitch.
I love this card for many different reasons, but one of the main reasons that I would say that I care so much about this card is because it is a beautiful alt art that does more than just sits on my shelf. Because Stitch is a character that is beloved in the Disney community, but for me is one of my favorite characters. I think that Stitch in general represents a lot of people who feel outside of what the norm is. And for me, that is inviting. It also allows you to lean into this like fun and creative side, while also recognizing that this character is alien, is different, is out of this world. And that like character-esque childlike persona that's just chaotic and also a lot of fun, I think brings a lot of creativity to the game. And for me, I see no other card that could take my heart in the way that this particular Stitch has.
I find Stitch to be such a relatable character, and that's one of the many reasons that I love this card.
So now you know what our favorite cards are. We want to know what yours are. Part of what we want to do here at Rotten to the Lore is involve you. So every time we come out here, we're going to give you a little bit of homework. We want you to watch at the end of this show. You're going to see all of the places that you can reach out to us. Reach out to us and tell us what your favorite card is. So new to the game that you don't have a favorite card yet? Tell us your favorite character. We want to share with you in the Disney Lorcana magic. And then whatever y'all send in, we're going to pick a few and share them back out when we come back here in a couple of weeks. So start thinking and remember to check at the end of the video so you know where to send us all of your favorite characters and cards.
And we won't judge you too hard.
We won't judge you at all. Well, I won't judge you at all. Wait, I'm the villain. I'm supposed to be judgy. You're not supposed to be judgy.
That's right. Any character you pick, I will like.
And I will judge you. No, wait, I'm not going to judge you. We're really excited to see what you like and to share more about what we like. This is such an exciting time to be joining the game and to be discovering Lorcana, because even though it's been around for almost 2 years now, things are changing. This game is still new and it's growing. And because of that, we've got already 5 different types of ways, 5 formats that we can play this game in. So Alex is going to tell you a little bit about those formats.
So, as Cece mentioned, this community has grown so much, even more than Ravensburger themselves thought it would grow. It grew so fast. And that's one of the things that is so cool about it, which means there's so many different opportunities and ways in which you can get involved and play. Whether it's like a Let's Play or a community event, theme deck tournament, or set champs, there's so many ways to get involved. But there are 5 main formats that I'm going to kind of touch on today, as these are the ones you're going to see most often. We have Draft, Sealed, Pack Rush, Core Constructed, and Infinity. Infinity isn't really a format yet, which kind of is a necessitation for the wave that we're going about this channel, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But first, Draft. Draft is similar to any other TCG draft if you have played that. But if you have not, the way that it works is you open a pack simultaneously with your pod, and you take a card from that pack. You get to look at all of them, but you only get to keep one. You put it face down and you pass that pack to the left or the right, depending on what round you're on. It switches sides each time. And you do this until you run out of cards. Everyone ends up with the same amount of cards, but there's so much choice involved, and there's so much diversity in the types of decks that you get. Because, of course, everybody wants the best limited card whenever you're drafting. There's also another type of limited format, and that is Sealed. This is where you get 6 packs, and you get to build your deck out of those packs. Personally, my partner loves this format because she doesn't feel like she's giving her cards away. She gets to just make it out of what she got. And so sometimes that can be a better intro into this type of limited format of Lorcana, or any trading card game for that matter.
And limited means that you don't have access to all the cards. Limited means that whatever you're going to play is going to come out of the packs that you've been given for this draft or this sealed.
Yes. Thank you, Cece. See, even I sometimes don't demystify the TCG space. And I will say I need it demystified.
Another type of limited-ish format is Pack Rush. This is an exclusive Disney Lorcana format where you use 2 packs, you do not look at them, you shuffle them, and you start with 2 ink in your inkwell. Don't worry, it's not messy. We will talk about inks later on. However, it's so much fun because you are finding out what cards you drew at the same time that your opponent is. You don't know what you're playing. And it's about who can get to 15 more, not 20, the fastest. So many cool events happen at the DLC or even standalone events where developers will come and play with community members in this type of format because it's very easy, pick up and go, and it's very forgiving. Also, just a lot of fun. You'll also see Cece and I play this often because a lot of our reels will be this. And honestly, if you're having a bad day, go buy 2 packs and then play Pack Rush with somebody. It makes you feel so much better, no matter if you win or lose, because you have so many more cards.
Yes, dopamine hit.
The 2 other formats that are not limited that we do want to talk about are Core Constructed, which is right now the most popular format, which, as I have talked about previously in the video prior to this, that the format itself is a constructed deck that happens with all of the cards. You have to use 60 minimum. You can only use up to 4 types of any particular card unless that a card says otherwise. However, this is really cool because this is how people in the community communicate with each other and make different types of decks. Whether you're playing a deck that is all puppies or you're playing Steel Song and making your opponents feel like they wish they hadn't played the game, you're creating a space in which you can talk about the different types of combos that can happen and ways in which you can get to 20 lore before your opponent can. And it's that kind of constructive that creates this type of community. Core Constructed is what has been at the DLCs. It is also what we do for set champs. Don't worry if you don't understand at this particular moment or if you have a lot of questions. I know that other people have, and that's okay. We're going to break all of that down for you as we continue with this channel. That being said, the last format is the one that we aren't familiar with yet. And that's what makes it so exciting for you to start your Disney Lorcana journey. Because the Infinity format uses all cards. Well, Alex, didn't you just say that Core Constructed uses all cards? Well, Ravensburger just announced that they're going to start set rotation for Core Constructed. If you've done other TCGs, you know that set rotation is something that is a part of the community. It creates accessibility to get people to be able to play competitively because, let's face it, Chapter 1 and Floodborn are really hard to get unless you would like to pay an arm and a leg and maybe Stitch's nose. However, whenever we're thinking about getting involved and getting competitive, it's not just about those who have been playing TCGs for 20 years. It's about everyone. And that's why we're here. What Infinity does is once these sets rotate out of Core Constructed, Infinity lets you use all of the cards. Some people will like this better because they've already spent the money on the cards, so they like to play the cards. But other people will enjoy that type of rotation and creating new and fresh experiences in the local meta. Now, Cece, what's a meta?
Well, a meta is going to be different everywhere that you are. A meta is essentially what kinds of decks are being played pretty regularly, what kinds of decks are doing really well, given the cards that are available right now. So as Alex said, there have been 8 sets as of today. Today is the pre-release for Reign of Jafar. We're so excited. 8 sets have existed, and these 8 sets exist in what's called the first rotation. When this rotation happens at the end of set 8, sets 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are called the first chapter, Rise of the Floodborn, Into the Inklands, and Ursula's Return, are going to fall out of Core Constructed. This, like Alex said, is going to make some people pretty unhappy because they really love certain cards. I know I have some cards. I did not pick one for my favorite card because I knew that Daisy is set 5 and Shimmering Skies, so she's going to stick around for a little while more. But some of them are going to be gone and people are going to miss them. So that's what the Infinity format is going to be for. The meta is going to stick with what's currently being played. So when you're seeing all these videos out there, there are a lot of amazing content creators that can tell you about the kinds of decks they're playing, the kinds of decks they've won tournaments with. These things shape the meta, and they shift with each new set. Some games, some styles, like my style, the aggro, wasn't doing super great in the first couple of chapter metas because there just wasn't enough aggro cards to make it competitive. Then around set 4, it really started to be like, oh, okay, now we've got some gas. There's more new cards that are shaping the meta to allow us to be competitive with some of the other types of deck like control or ramp, which are things we'll talk about in the next few weeks. The meta is going to shift every time they give us new cards because those new cards will require answers, and those answers will require answers. And so everything twists just a little bit, and it keeps the game fresh and it keeps the game fun. So I don't know if that's like a super great vision of the meta, but I think it gives you a general idea of what we're talking about when we talk about the meta. It's essentially what a lot of people are playing. People will call them the meta decks. People will say they're playing a meta deck or they're playing off meta. I generally prefer to play off meta. I like playing things that people aren't necessarily going to be prepared for, because when you're playing meta decks, the general public knows that they're the meta decks. So they are expecting to see certain cards based on the ink colors you chose. And we haven't talked a whole lot about ink today. We're going to as we move forward in the next few videos. But there are 6 different ink colors that you can pick from, and your deck is to be made of 2 of them. Now that is in Core Constructed and Infinity. In Pack Rush, Draft, and Sealed, you don't have those restrictions. You can use as many ink colors as you want. But for the meta, we'll be playing in Core Constructed or Infinity, and those will require those 2. So in the meta, people have an idea of what you're going to play or what they can expect to see in your deck. Off meta, they call it spicy, and they have no idea what might be in the deck. You might have pulled out some really cool combo that nobody ever thought of before, and that would be considered off meta until everyone picks it up, and then it becomes meta.
And that's the beauty of set rotation as well, because decks that were at the top, because they were the meta decks that were doing well, performing well in that particular set, they sometimes have to rotate. And in fact, I play on meta often, and I try to beat other meta decks. But one of the decks that I play most often is known as Steel Song. This deck is largely rotating out. And while some people are very frustrated about this fact, and don't get me wrong, I did foil out my deck, so I do get that. But
what does that mean?
It's so exciting. Hey, that's a great point. So in Disney Lorcana, there are a bunch of different types of cards, but we will save that for another time. There are 2 distinctions that do need to be made for most cards, just in general. And that is that you have a regular card that doesn't have any foil treatment, and you have that same card with foil treatment. This gets more complicated as we talk about rarities and what types and borderless foils, but those are all exciting things, not confusing things. At the end of the day, whether or not you're just getting into Disney Lorcana and trying out a deck for yourself, or you know that the deck that you play the most is going away with the rotation, this is an exciting time to continue on or embark on your journey with Disney Lorcana, because the community is vibrant and rich, but the meta is pretty spicy.
So here at Rotten to the Lore, we're going to act as though you know nothing about this game. We're going to come at it from a brand new, hey, I just heard about this thing called Disney Lorcana. Is that it? Yeah. What's that? How do I play? We're going to approach it from that perspective. And over the next 3 months, as we work our way through the Reign of Jafar in preparation for set rotation with set 9 Fabled, we're going to take you every 2 weeks to a new set of the history of this class of this TCG. So next time we come, we're going to talk about the first chapter. To do that, we're going to play some first chapter games. We're going to talk about the different mechanics that came out in first chapter. And then the next time we'll do the same for Return or Rise of the Floodborn. And we'll keep doing that so that once the set rotation happens and Fabled opens up in, I think it's the end of August, in about 3 months, you'll be ready to go, whether you decide that you want to play with Infinity and you're like, hey, I saw these things, I want to play those, or whether you want to move forward. You won't be losing all of the cards in set rotation. Again, only sets 1 to 4. So 5 to 8 are going to stay playable through 12. And then at 12, 5 to 8 will rotate out. It's a little complicated, but we'll talk more about that in the future. For now, the thing to know is that we're going to take you on this journey with us. We want your questions. We want to know what doesn't make sense, because the whole point of what we're doing here at Rotten to the Lore is to demystify. And if you're asking yourself the question, a bunch of other people are asking themselves the question too. So do them a favor and be the one to ask so they don't have to. We're really excited to go on this journey with you, and we're really glad that you joined us today. We can't wait till next time. Good or evil, every glimmer has a place. And so do you. See you next time at Rotten to the Lore.